Everyone, welcome to the first episode of Check the Wire with myself, DanGheesling, Ryan Gary, aka Northernlion Paterno. Ryan, what's going on, man?
Not too much. I'm excited to get this off the ground.
So speaking of what this is off the ground, Check the Wire is a show that essentially takes you behind the scenes and talks about what goes on behind what both Ryan and I do. The good things, the things we try that don't work on the back end of I guess you say gaming careers behind YouTube and Twitch and everything else we do. Is that fair to say, Ryan?
Yeah, I think so. It's a podcast about how we're the only two people we know that stream, make YouTube videos, and do TikTok videos.
That too.
The true triple threats.
And can we talk about the origin story or real quick of get people up to speed on how this even started?
Yeah. So, I mean, you and myself and also some other people that we've worked with from time to time, sometimes when we're doing like YouTube videos of video games, we'll get into, the behind the scenes, what it means to be a creator. Like, what does your day look like? What are the cool parts of it? What are the negative parts of it? But it always felt kind of strange to like be playing Mario. And instead of talking about what's happening in the game at all, we're just talking about like our lives. But still, people liked it. So I thought, you know what? It would be cool to get something more formal going on. So I reached out to Dan, who, if you're watching this, you're probably familiar, but he already runs his own podcast where he talks about this kind of stuff. And basically I was like, I want to be like a barnacle on the ship. I want to cling to what you've already got going on. And if we could do like some kind of like duo podcast with those similar issues, that'd be cool.
And when I got that message from Ryan, I was like, that's a great idea, because essentially what is it's like the inside baseball. You always talk about inside baseball, and I feel like whenever we do duo videos, it's like we get into it kind of, and then it's like, oh, well, this important moment in a game happens, so we stop talking about it. But to be honest, when you reached out, I was like, oh, that's really cool, because most of the time, I mean, in how we've worked together for the majority of times, it's mostly me reaching out to you. So I got to say, like, it was cool to just on a personal level be like, hey, yeah, Ryan wants to do this, and I think it'll be cool. And I think in terms of 2020 and how you've evolved content, I think I would assume it's kind of in that same vein of you being like, hey, I want to try something new and do something different. But for you, where did like the spark come to be like, hey, let's try this out?
Well, this is I want to answer without it just becoming too flattering to you right off the bat and setting a weird dynamic. But it is like I think that for a long time, I've always like enjoyed doing YouTube. I've always enjoyed doing Twitch. I find like the day-to-day stuff very fun. But the kind of like meta aspects of it, like trying out new ideas and, really like experiencing like new platforms and stuff like that is something that had fallen by the wayside for like a half decade. But you brought like a level of enthusiasm towards that stuff that became infectious. So for me, I was like, well, if Dan's doing this, I can try this as well. So, I started doing videos that were not just, the same kind of like gameplay commentary stuff. Experimented a little bit with formats on stream, creating edited videos, pushing highlights to TikTok and stuff like that. So it was really just this kind of evolution that came through that, where I was like, it would be nice to have an outlet to talk about this kind of stuff, because I think that within like our group of colleagues, we're like the only people that really, I think, are interested to this extent in the behind the scenes stuff right now. So I think it's nice to have an outlet to talk about that.
Yeah, no, and I'm excited too, because I always talk about it, and then we'll change the vernacular, the tone of the podcast. But I look at when people say, hey, what do you think of Ryan or anything like that? I always think of what I got from you is I don't think anyone outworks you. And I just think that you're so dialed in a industry, in what we do, we make videos and streams, where it's really easy to be like, hey, you can mail it in, or I missed a video, or I missed a stream. And it's like, when I look at your history, it's like, there's a reason for your success. And I think it's, number one, you're an extremely witty individual. And I think that you can't recreate that. But also, that's not enough. It's like you've been, I don't know, 15 million at Isaac. You're just very consistent. And I think it's just a rare combination of someone who has that personality with the work ethic, especially for how far you've come. And just to give people context that, may be unfamiliar with Ryan on my side of things, he's got 800,000 subscribers on YouTube. That just
809,000. Thank you very much. And I've been grinding for those last 9,000 for a long time.
So, but it's just like that just doesn't just happen overnight. And so I think it's cool to kind of be able to pick your brain, but also just bounce ideas off you. So speaking of that, you talked about you've tried a bunch of different formats, and I think anyone that's watched your stuff in the past have seen a lot of new things on your channel format wise. What's been behind the scenes, like when you like, so for example, the tier list videos, can you explain what those are and how that even got on your radar?
Oh yeah. So like in a broad sense, a tier list is just like you have a category of things like, I've done pizza toppings or like foods or Marvel Cinematic Universe movies and stuff like that. And you just go, okay, there's like great, good, pretty good, bad, awful, garbage, right? And you just kind of put them wherever you want them and have a discussion about why you're doing that. But in like an even broader sense, it was just an opportunity to like make content about stuff that is not video games, and just it's honestly just kind of like an improv bit extended. And the reason that stuff came to pass, and like the which of my friends would win in a fight video and stuff like that, is just which is like it's a dumb concept, and that's why I love it. It's just a bad PowerPoint presentation of like basically complimenting people that I work with. But it's this idea that like, and I talked about this in a channel update, so I'll just like compartmentalize it or summarize it a little bit. But like for a long time, I was like, people on YouTube want to watch games that they like, not necessarily people that they like. And then I realized, like, especially through streaming and getting like live feedback from people actually like the content creator, which has taken me a long time to kind of get used to. And if that's the case, then I don't necessarily have to be like, oh, I'm going to stress out about making like 5 Isaacs today. Instead, I can make something different, and people might be interested in that just because it's new.
Yeah, and that's really because I watched that channel update video of yours, and what really struck me on that, I think a lot of people it resonated with and were surprised with, who aren't on this side of like the creation process. You said like there was, I don't want this, I'm not saying it well, but like struggling with the worth of what you actually do in like society, and you're like, hey, you took it to a point where like you kind of question like, hey, I make videos. And it's not something you like broadcast, but at some point you're like you accepted it and were like, yeah, this is cool, and people tune in to watch me, Northernlion. Like, how did you? That's a pretty big mental hurdle to get over. Was there like something where it's like this was the comment or this was the response that I got?
No, honestly, I think like so like there's been a couple of, I don't want to call them ruts, but like, you get into a rhythm, which is great, but sometimes the rhythm can also lead to some, staling. So like early in 2019, I was like, I'd really like to get out of the idea of like, I'm constantly going to have like 3 long running series. Because I think what happens is, or what happened to me at least, I can't speak for other people, but like I became like the Isaac guy, and then like a little smattering of like the Gungeon guy, and, like the Spelunky guy or whatever, the Slay the Spire guy. So I started to believe that like my job was to put out those kind of videos, and I lost sight of the fact that my job was to like entertain people or get them to engage with the content in one way or the other because they enjoy it. So I think I kind of like got my priorities mixed up, and it was like November, December of last year, I was like, numbers for long-term series are kind of like on the down, which is what you would expect from episode 3000 or whatever of Isaac. So like if the numbers are kind of dipping anyway, I might as well try to shake it up and try something new. And I think that honestly, that's been really helpful. But I'm trying to get it across in the best way possible. Cause I think I have similar questions for you, honestly, because you're almost in like an inverted position right now from my standpoint, where you try a lot of different stuff, but also you just had something get a lot of traction with the Tarkov streams earlier in January. So I want to know what your thoughts on it are.
Well, real quick, I want to wrap up on your end. You said for context, you said the views started to go down or stale. So like on Isaac in like not heyday, but in like better than average times, what were they per video for you roughly?
I don't know. They were like at launch, it's obviously just nuts, but like even in like 2017, I feel like they would be like 45,000, 50,000 views per video, which is, amazing for
it's
something.
A unicorn.
You like, I don't want to act like it's no work, but it's literally no work except what you've already seen on the video. Like other stuff, like which of my friends would win in a fight, I had to go and do like a PowerPoint presentation, right? In Isaac, you just turn it on and it's good to go. It's like going to a well and pumping water, and then you just have the water. You don't have to do anything with it.
Yeah, but it's kind of like, like Tiger Woods goes to the driving range and drives 375. He just goes and does it. That's what you've done, but all the weightlifting and everything to even get to that point. But all right, I don't want to get too far off track. So 2017, you're like 45 is like good. So fast forward to like 2019, end of 2019, what were the Isaacs getting that was like, not that made you start to do other stuff, but just for context?
I don't know, probably like 30.
Okay.
Somewhere in there. I don't follow the analytics that closely for Isaac, because I know if this is the podcast where we're gonna lay the business psychology bare, Isaac is just an egg right now. You're just the DLC's coming out at some point. I'm the Isaac guy. I just want to keep momentum going until the DLC comes out. And then also, like, it's nice to have something that literally has no mental overhead. So like, well, I've got all these other videos that might, it might be 3 in 1 week and 0 for 2 weeks after that. Isaac is like coming out at a clip, at a pace.
Yeah, but I think there's something to be said for that for a couple of reasons. One, it's like, I'm sure it could be easy for you to phase it out. I don't know. I don't know how you feel about the series, because I'd imagine it's like part of your routine. So from like a day to day, do you record Isaac every day still, or do you batch it?
Yeah, usually it's like on Fridays, I'll record like 5. Mm-hmm. And then throughout the week, I'll record like 4 or 5 on the other 5 working days.
Just randomly?
Yeah, whenever I get a chance. Like it's always the lowest priority work, because I just have so much of it in the backlog.
Got it.
I'll do the stuff that is timely, and then it's like, oh, it's not quite my time to stop working yet. So I'll do some Isaac.
But I still look at that decision as like on YouTube, if you were to stop and then come back when the DLC came out, just from what I understand, I don't think it has as big as a rip as if you like what you're doing now. You just kind of ride it out until the DLC comes out. You know what I mean? I don't know if that makes sense or not.
Yeah, I honestly, it's like Isaac, even though I just talked about it from like a business standpoint, I honestly look at it as like it's not a business decision at all. Yeah. It's like it does bring in, income, and it brings in views, but mostly it's just like I look at that almost like it keeps people in the routine of watching stuff, and it's also an outlet to talk about like non-game stuff during it. Mm-hmm. So I look at it's almost like it's a loss leader. It's like how when you go into Five Guys and you get like a small fry, they just fill up the paper bag. It's probably on a per unit basis not that good for them, but it engenders some kind of goodwill.
And just and this will kind of wrap up the Isaac stuff here, but for context, how many episodes in total have you recorded roughly?
Honestly, I don't know, but like
it's 2,000 plus.
It's definitely 2,000 plus. I mean, it's probably 4,000 plus. Because like, let me look at what did I make yesterday. Yesterday was the 1,545th episode of Afterbirth Plus, which is a DLC to Afterbirth, which is a DLC to Rebirth, which is the sequel to the original Flash game. So,
and I gotta ask, so let's just call it 5,000 episodes. Has there been any point where you're like, I'm done, or because it's like a mental dump outlet for you or a stream of conscious, it doesn't matter?
It's tough. Certainly there have been times where I've been like, maybe it's time to retire it. And it like now it won't happen till the DLC, but probably 6 months ago, if you asked me, I'd be like, man, there's like a 50-50 chance I might just put it on hiatus for a bit until the DLC actually comes out. Cause like I've just played so much of it. And it's also, I think it's reached the point where it's like, it's no longer necessarily a strength of the channel. Like, I don't want to say it's a weakness, but I've gone from being like the guy people love watching play Isaac to like, oh my God, he's still playing Isaac. I can't believe it.
Do you think that with the diversity and content on your channel, that's allowed you to not say put up with Isaac, because that's not the right words, but that allow like almost resurged you in Isaac because you're able to do other stuff?
Not really, to be honest.
You're just
like, I mean, that's I want to ask your perspective on this, because you're in the crucible right now to some extent, especially when Tarkov had drops. But like for me, to wrap up my side, it was like I was always cognizant of the fact that like you catch a wave on YouTube. The most common way you do it is not by necessarily being like that creative at least in the game space, but just like you're the guy who plays this game and then the game kind of goes off and it takes you with it.
Mm-hmm.
So I was cognizant of the fact that for like, years, I was like, Isaac is like the main reason people are here. I got to build something around it to get people to stick around. And I don't think it's that I have come to terms with the fact that people enjoy watching whatever I do, but really like it's almost like it's comforting because Isaac went from being the thing that everybody was there for to being the thing that people are like, I can't believe that that's still there. It's like I've siphoned the audience from Isaac off to other stuff on the channel. And it took like half a decade, but it's good that reliance is gone.
And I think on a macroeconomics or high level, I'm just trying to think of like people in the industry that are still doing this, that are, I would say, I don't want to use the term successful because everyone's version of success is different, but that are people that you may know of. You can almost trace every one of those people back to a single game. And I'm just trying to think of like, I think that's the path. I believe that's the path, but I'm just trying to think of like anyone, like I'm just going to throw someone out there randomly. Bear, what do you think of? First thing you think of? Spelunky. Sure. And then Darkest Dungeon. But
Darkest Dungeon,
sure,
that's true. Yeah.
But I'm just trying to think of everyone. I don't know. Can you think of anyone in your head off the top that you're like, you can't associate them with a game? Maybe not now, but like their first game?
I mean, I can think of like variety streamers and stuff like that, but I think everybody, even variety streamers that are really popular, have had like their meat and potatoes game that they've been, in the community with for like 5 years or something like that. So I think there's like, and this is probably not a subject for like episode 1 of a new podcast. I think there's like phases of like your life cycle as a content creator, and like the same way that there is in like an industry, but I think that like phase 1 is like you got to get some traction, and I'm sure that you can. I'm blessed, to be honest, that I started when I did and didn't have to go through a period where it was like 0 viewers to 1 viewer, 1 viewer to 3 viewers, 3 viewers to 5 viewers, et cetera, et cetera. I'm sure you can slowly build like a channel like that, but it was also really convenient to just be like, hey, I played this game, and then I went to sleep and woke up the next day and like 20,000 people watched the video, and I was like, okay, I guess that it's just that easy.
And I don't think that, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's extremely rare to happen on YouTube in 2020. Do you agree or disagree with that?
I think so. I mean, everybody can come up with examples.
Yeah.
Because I think like for every game that hits like some kind of popularity out of nowhere, it brings like a few people with it. Mm-hmm. Like Isaac brought, I don't know, like 20 people with it. Probably more if there's, if you count people that are not English language creators who I'm like not even familiar with at all. So I think, everyone's like, well, what about Ninja? He streamed to like, 100 viewers maybe for 5 years. Then when Fortnite came out, he got up to like 75,000 viewers. But I think it's super rare.
But like,
and I think especially because like even the channels that are like at the top are hungry. So when a new thing comes out that gets some popularity, they're like, I want to be there too, and lump those people in with my audience.
But, I mean, I don't know if we disagree on this, but I just think on YouTube, when you started, it was way easier on YouTube to like blow up, like wake up, oh, there's 20,000 views than it is in 2020. That's my
opinion. Agree 1,000%.
Which brings us, I guess, to our first pivot is TikTok, where I listened to this podcast called the Gary V Podcast, and he's like, TikTok and LinkedIn, and I spent like 6 hours just looking at TikTok. I'm like, what is this? And I started doing it, and I feel like, and I think we can both talk to it, TikTok is kind of like how YouTube was, not the same format, blah blah blah, but the ability to go viral or to get a lot of attention very quickly is there, almost like YouTube back in the day. But even YouTube back in the day when you did it, it wasn't easy to do. But I feel like TikTok is pretty easy to, not easy. It's easier to do.
Well, I don't know. I think you're honestly like the authority on this between the two of us for sure. Because I've had stuff on TikTok that is done fine. I've had stuff that even like I don't take it for granted.
Define fine on TikTok for you.
Like I've had one video got like 150,000 plays, which I think is very, very good. Mm-hmm. And a couple of videos are in like the 25,000 range. One is 50,000, but most of them are around like the 5 to 10,000 range.
Okay.
Which and I'm honestly, I want to hear you talk about this a lot, because I think you're coming from a position of having a lot more success on it so far. Oh, hello.
So I just held up Ryan's TikTok profile. So he's talking like 25,000 views. Even let's just say you have a Dark Souls one, 4,900 views.
Yeah.
Just to tie it together, he has, let's call it 6,000 followers. And I don't want to get like super into the metadata on this, but for him to get a Dark Souls video with 23,000 views, what is that? 4 times your follower count?
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Like, I honestly, people are like, well, it's easy for me to be like, oh, I posted that thing and it only got like 3,000 views, but also it took like less than 10 minutes to make, and I've only been on the platform for like a month. Now, if you went to YouTube and you posted something like that, you would get like 5 views.
Yeah.
And that's if you emailed everybody that you knew and were like, hey, watch my video. But you've had some stuff that's gotten like what's your highest viewed TikTok?
So
it's over 500,000 now.
Yeah, so I had one last week, and it's at 969,000 views.
See, that's insane.
It is, and like I have this weird theory where if I have one that catches a wave, because right away you'll be like 5,000 views, 10,000 views within the first couple hours. I have this theory that if you don't post, because there'll be days when I'll post 2 or 3 times in a day, but if I have one that rides a wave, I don't post after it. I'm testing it, and I feel like it does better for whatever reason when you don't. So I kind of let that ride out. But I guess in the end, I started it because I just believed it would work, but I don't even know what working is. The only thing, and we've talked about this privately, when we say check the wire, by the way, it's what we call like private Discord messages, where I said like, what does this really do? And I think at the end of the day, it's what we try to do. When whether it sounds like kind of cringy, but it's like we're in the eyeballs or attention business. For us to be able to continue to do what we do, people have got to watch. And I think the only direct correlation I can like say 1-to-1, which isn't why I do it, is that there's been people that come into my Twitch chat when I'm streaming Tarkov, and they're like, hey, you're the Tarkov TikTok guy. And I can't tell you that it's a 1-to-1 thing, but I just know it's working. And it's, I think more importantly for you and I think it's like, I have fun doing TikTok videos. I don't know about you. I mean,
that's what I was going to say, actually, is like, I'm not even concerned. I think some people, they put the cart before the horse a little bit, and they're like, how do you like monetize your stuff on TikTok, or like how realistically, if somebody's like scrolling through their feed and they like your video, what are the odds that they're going to go to your profile, be like, okay, here's his Twitch channel, I'm going to follow him, and the next time he's live, I'm going to watch. It's like, it's near zero, I think. It might be like 0.0000 repeating, of course, but like what it's done for me, and this is like it's a little bit self-inflating, but I'm going to say it anyway, is like on YouTube, I've kind of like made it. And if I put something out, even if it's great, it'll do a little bit better. If it's bad, it'll do a little bit worse, but everything's kind of within that same range. And on TikTok, a platform where I'm like unknown completely, it's like a chance it's like going back to YouTube in its infancy and being like, it's exciting because you don't know if something's going to hit or if it's going to flop. And I agree, like it's fun to just make the content in the first place. And it gets back to like the reason you started doing it in the first place, which is like, you want to entertain people. So when like 100,000 people watch something that you make on TikTok, it's not because you have 100,000 subscribers and they all like your stuff. It's because other people went like, this is good, show more people.
Yeah, no, and I think you nailed something ahead in terms of like how I think we both approach things. I can just tell you how I approach it, is that my focus is never on like on Twitch subscribers or how many people are watching. It's just put on the best show possible, because I believe, and this is, I guess, a philosophy or whatever you want to call it for me, if I put on a good show and every show I put on is a little bit better each time, then all that stuff's going to happen. It may not happen in a year, it may not happen in a month, it may take 5 years, but that's my philosophy on it. And I think, and I don't talk about this really ever, but one of the things that allows me to do that, because I don't think it's easy, like I have such a long-term perspective on it, is that like I have a real life business that I run, so I don't have to rely on like paying the bills because of this. Like it certainly helps, and one day like I would love for that to be the case, but that's just not my focus. And I feel like what has allowed me the time to like with TikTok and like throw stuff against the wall and long enough to say, all right, this worked and this didn't. But I don't know. I don't want to give advice on anything, but I just feel like if you do it because you love it, like, I mean, you've made 5,000 Isaac episodes. You're not doing it because it's just for the money. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
no, of course not.
so I don't know what the point is on the rant, but I just feel like stuff like TikTok, it's all just things we can try. And I think at the end of the day, it just moves the needle forward, both in us having fun, being creative, but also kind of serving the end goal of, hey, you get to do what you like to do for a longer period of time.
And I honestly, like, I think that's one of the reasons that we're like a good match for the podcast as well, is because like a lot of streamer focused podcasts, and I'm not trying to cast aspersions on them at all, but I think that there's a lot of, especially on streamer Twitter, a lot of complaining about like someone in my chat was negative today, you know, like you should never do this in a situation like this. It makes the streamer feel bad. And like all that stuff is coming from a place of like, you know, real emotion. But I'm also like, man, there's so little conversation about like how lucky people that do this for a living actually are to do it for a living. And I feel like everybody that's like a small streamer or YouTuber is like, oh, I just can't. I have like this hunger to get to the point where I can do it full time. And then a lot of people who get full time are like, they've become resentful, I think, at least on some level.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's one of the things I think we've talked about privately is just like, you don't want to say you have the best job in the world. I don't know why. Like, I'm okay saying I don't know why, but it's just to be able to do this. Like, you know, there's people that play Isaac or whatever roguelikes. They would probably murder someone to be in your shoes. They just would, because, and I just feel like, and I've gone what I do, and I think this is a whole different topic of conversation. Maybe we don't go super deep into it, but when I start to see that stuff on people I follow on Twitter, out of respect, I don't unfollow them, but I just mute them, because you and I have talked about this, but whatever, if you're around people that are grateful and positive, for the most part, everyone has their bad days, like that's going to rub off on you. On the flip side, if your Twitter feed or whatever you watch, this is how I believe, is all negative or complaining, I think that gets to you. And I feel like as I've been able to tune out that stuff, it's been beneficial for, you know, not only on the success of the channel, but also internally and mentally. And I think you hit the other thing too, is just being grateful. Like, people one day could say, hey, I don't want to watch you anymore. Then what do you do? You know what I mean? So I just enjoy where I'm at right now. And I don't think about, hey, what's here. And some people may think it's like cringy or whatever, but like I'll tweet things where I'm like just grateful, and I sit back and, you know, and I think it might be different for you, but for me, I started on a point in Twitch where it was just very different where it is now in terms of support. And I'm like, I can look back and be like, hey, I remember streaming and, you know, 20 people were watching, and it was just different. And to be, not that I've made it through any stretch of the imagination, but just to be able to be grateful where you are now, I think people can feel that. I think your viewers feel that. And I think internally, it's just, I'm really content and happy with how things are. And we talk about kind of work-life balance and how that plays a part, but I don't know. Have you ever been at a point where you didn't feel grateful and where you had to like realign? Has that ever happened to you?
Yeah, I think like not to a huge degree, but I think I can fall into it from time to time. But I've been doing a lot better about it. Like, I think I do believe that the people you surround yourself with, you know, it helps out a great deal. Like, you know, in terms of like, I used to definitely probably like once a month I would spotlight some kind of like terrible comment on a YouTube video or something like that. Like, blur the username, tweet the comment, and be like, look at this stuff that we have to deal with. But then I realized, like, I don't know, it's just I don't want to see that from other streamers as well. Whenever I see another streamer or YouTuber spotlight something like that, I'm like, what's the point? Like, I get that you're upset, but like the people that are following you don't really want to see that, except for the whatever percentage of people that are like, this is ridiculous. You know, I can't believe you have to deal with this stuff, blah, blah, blah. That just make you feel like, you know, you're the victim, I guess, even further to some extent.
I'll be the jerk, and I'm just going to tell you how I feel on that. When I see that kind of stuff, I don't care. Like, I'm just like, I don't care. I don't, you know, and so I think I'm similar to you, where it's like, if that's how I feel about that, then I know other people feel the same way. So I don't share that stuff. You know,
Yeah.
and that's why I hope we can focus on this podcast, which I think we will, about like not everything's a successful win, but if you take an L, it's not like you can learn from it. It's not like, oh, Glum is this, but I don't know, man. When I started Twitch, when I really went all in on Twitch, I just wanted to do it a little bit different, where it was just, I didn't want that stuff in the community because I think it affects you. And I'm not gonna call you the carpet here, but there is like, we talk about it privately, but I want to bring it up. We've talked about when we play board games. You've mentioned like, if there's rules to a game, we're kind of all on the same page about not asking chat for the rule breakdown. Can you talk about that?
So it boils down to like the simplest philosophy, which is what I've been trying to focus on this year, which is that like my job is to entertain people. So when we play a game like, Candyland, which is just like a garbage game. It's literally like at the start of Candyland.
Don't talk about grandma nut like that.
At the start of Candyland, you could like be like, hey, pick a number between 1 and 100, and whoever's closest wins. Like it's all determined by the order of the deck, essentially. So when we play something like that, it's not because the game is so good we want to spotlight it. It's so that we have this like simple platform where we can, create entertainment by, the highs and lows of whatever you draw. So it like is the most frustrating thing, and I know you can relate to it, is when you're playing a game and you're trying to entertain, and then the entire focus of chat, or what seems like the entire focus of chat, is like, oh, on 2 you're not supposed to actually move 2, you're supposed to move 1 unless you're already out, and then you move 2. And it's just, I mean, it's lighthearted, but I will say like it's been driving me up the wall on some of the board game streams. But I think like because we've been so negative about rules lawyering, as people call it, people in the community are starting to self-police a little bit.
And when you say like it gets to you, like clearly if it happens a lot, like what do you do internally? How do you check that to the best of your ability so it doesn't affect your ability to entertain? Have you thought about that?
One thing I will say is I think that you and I have different strategies for this. I think me getting a little bit righteously annoyed and angry on stream is part of the charm. And, I definitely am not one of the, like when you tweet stuff about being like having gratitude and stuff like that, I would probably never tweet that, or I would tweet it like once in a blue moon.
Yeah.
But it's just different like personality quirks.
Yeah.
I try to let enough in that I can diffuse it by being angry about it in a humorous way on the stream. But I think it's equally valid to just ignore it, or to be like, hey guys, we're just going to keep playing the game by our own rules. So, please don't be so anal about it in chat.
Well, I think for context, when you do it, it's not like a teacher scolding students. It's kind of like when the kind of funny, angry guy in a sitcom that you watch to not get angry, but when he gets angry, the kids aren't really taking him serious. Versus like if I did that on my channel, people would be like, oh, Dan's really mad because he never
really
does
crossed
that.
The line.
Right. Versus the flip side on Twitter, like if you tweeted out, hey, I'm really grateful, people are like, is Ryan okay? I think it's like you said, just plays in our personality, and we're just, I think at the end of the day, like I think for the most part, we're really just authentic in terms of, hey, we don't do something because we do something because how we feel, not because we think it's gonna get a reaction or whatever.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know. I've talked about this a few times, and the reception has been lukewarm at best. But sometimes I do feel like, especially on Twitch, that is my job to like trick the person to be entertained. And I think part of it is honestly just having, a community where there could be 1,500 or 2,000 people talking simultaneously. There's a tendency for some people to like, the way that they will get noticed is they'll make like a mean-spirited joke, or they'll take something that you said and stretch it to an extreme to, misrepresent your position, or like they'll make fun of you in some way. And I'm like, I honestly like don't care about that. But each one of those is like a mine that I try to avoid, and just be like, I just got to focus on bringing some entertainment instead of like, I've got to like beat this jerk in chat who said that thing. And even then, I still slip into it from time to time. But
when you say like a mine, what do you mean by that?
I think like a lot of chat is some of chat is bait. At least some of my chat is bait.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, I might say something like, I think this is a good example. On Tuesday's stream, I had a position that's a little controversial. I was like, I think kids in North America could do a little bit more homework. When I was growing up, and I'm not a parent, nor do I have a degree in psychology. I was just speaking from my own experience, but I was like, when I was a kid in middle school and high school, I had like almost no homework, and I wasted so much time every night on stuff that I didn't even think was like that fun. Like I would just like log on to the internet and refresh like the same 8 websites or whatever over and over and over. And then, there were people in chat that were like, oh, I get it. You support like child labor, or you support like, child abuse, or kids should just be working 24/7, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I got sucked into it. But when I looked back on it, I was like, I should have just veered away from it, because it's not my job to get in the argument. It's my job to be entertaining.
We have very different opinions on homework. I think less homework, the better. That's a different story. But
I would love to talk about that in the future.
Yeah, but for you,
for sure.
What's your line that you cross in terms of, all right, hey, this person just debated me, versus, hey, I'm banning this person or muting this person? Will it, like, is there, and maybe we shouldn't give out the secret sauce, because then you'll be, but did you have have you ever just gone click and sent them? Or
yeah.
Is it
maybe like once a year?
Like outside of like reprehensible stuff, like, slurs and stuff like that like is insta ban. What is it that has triggered you to just...
it's just patterns of behavior. So like there are, I don't know, maybe like 250 usernames in my head, where I'm like, if I see a comment that's like a little bit over the line, I run it against the list of usernames in my head, and I'm like, is this person a constant issue, or is this person like, this is out of nowhere and is out of character? And then if you hit like 20 alarms in a row for the same person, I'm like, they need to like, it's not like meant to be like learn a lesson, but it's like, just be nicer and like stop disrupting the community. Like, I don't care. Nobody joins my chat that says things that are like extremely rude to me, but when it like crosses the line, so the community element gets poisoned a little bit, I think that's where it's not okay.
So for you, it's if one person is making a big deal or saying something out of the line, okay, but if it like snowballs and like affects other people, then you go on and like you root out the bad apple.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah, but
I don't know. I take a pretty like laissez-faire attitude to moderation for the most part, but it's hard to balance, and this is a subject for a different time, I guess, but it's hard to manage that while also not allowing like the worst elements to fester, for sure. And I think it's something we struggled with in the past, but you and I have talked about it as well. I kind of like having a Twitch chat where people are not afraid to be a little critical, as long as we establish that it's like it's all in good fun. As long as we're taking the gloves off, when I go into a Twitch chat and somebody really nicely is like, hey, would it be okay if I let you know that you missed a really important thing like 2 rooms ago, so if you go back, it would help you, and the streamer like goes off on them. That is, every time I see that happen, I'm like, man, this is like a foreign land to me.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, I can only say how I handle stuff, but I know what you're saying. Like, I'm not going to put anyone on blast, but I've seen clips, and I'm sure you have too, and where you saw, like, I'm just going to give a specific one, and I'll let everyone fill in the blanks. I saw someone playing a very difficult game, and someone subscribed, and it caused them to lose, and they, like, went off, and I'm like, man, this person just financially supported you and you just berated them. But the way I look at stuff is the way I handle bans and stuff like that is that if it's a constant thing, and my community is smaller than yours, so like I know like the list of people, but there's still that list of like, all right, 10-ish people in my head, and then if
many of which will overlap, I'm sure, between us.
But if I ban them, what I'll do is I tend to think people aren't doing it because they don't like you or because they're angry at you. I think maybe they have a bad day. So, and this is pretty deep in that it's a little bit different. But if they're in the community Discord, I'll DM them and say, hey, like, this is what's going on. This is what happened. Is everything okay? Because this is not like within the confines of the community. And some people Like we'll say, hey, whatever, I lost my job or da da da, and I get it. Or some people are like, F you, and I'm like, I get that too, but for me, I just think that I try to have as much empathy as possible as you can. A lot of people just have a bad day, but at the same time, I don't look at myself as a punching bag, and I don't think you do either to take that. But at the same time, I try to give people a little leeway, especially if they've been around and it's not their personality. But I think it's so hard because you and I and everyone else, we're in like, it's still kind of the wild, wild west. It's everything we do. It's like Twitch has been around for what, 8 years, maybe 9 years. And it's still evolving. So I don't know. I enjoy the process, but I try to look at everyone as much as I can individually and just try to gauge it from there. But I think that the key is, I think the most important thing is how do you let it affect you during a show? It's rare. I think it's super rare, but it's rare that I've tuned into your show and be like, yeah, chat got him. Like it just doesn't happen. But I'm sure there's people you can watch that that they get them. And that's fine too. It is what it is. But I think it's an element of something that you and I deal with that people may not necessarily know what it's like to be on the other side of that.
I think it's a philosophical thing too in the way that you position your content, right? Like you and I, you more than me, to be honest. But both of us have the mindset that we're putting on production. Like it's a show. It's not just hanging out with people in the community for 8 hours a day. And maybe we'll play like something, maybe we won't really play something. We'll mostly just hang out. So I think I straddle the line a little bit more. I think you're much more on the level that there's like a show being done. So for you to start letting elements of chat get to you completely poisons the well. It's just something that, I'm sure you don't want it to happen. So I think you do a good job with that. For me, it's like sometimes it is kind of like it's a show, but it's more of a casual sort of setup. So I think I can address it from time to time, but definitely, we could just talk circle jerk basically about this all day. But when people are like just totally ungrateful for that level of support, it's crazy to me.
Well, I give you a lot of credit, and I modeled my show after yours because I looked around Twitch and I saw really the majority of everything, and there's nothing wrong with this. It's just not how I want to do things. They go online, they hit the stream button, and they go. And I think even off the top of my head, the NLSS was like, you got 3 games, 1 game an hour, and it was run like a TV show. I'm like, there's something to that. I saw what people expected. They expected, hey, 3 games. They knew each game was going to go roughly an hour. If it went over 5 minutes or got cut short, it's not the end of the world, but there was like a cadence to the show. And you were able to do that. You're able to do that for so long. Like to me, there's something to that. And I don't know if you've ever tried this. I think you have, but during the Tarkov craziness, like it was a moment in time where these Twitch drops. I'm like, I'm going to try to make the most I can of this. And I would stream like 8 to 12, 8 to 12 hours for a couple days in a row. And I'm like, man, I'm not wired like this. And we talk about for the way we run the show, it's like, how do you be entertaining and keep your juice that long? I don't have an answer to that, but I just know I couldn't do that. But have you ever got into an extended stream where because I always feel like when your shows they're like when they start when they're supposed to start and they end when they're supposed to end. It's rarely do you go off the rails.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. But I'm trying to think of because on Tuesdays I stream long now. So when you
approach Tuesdays, do you have a plan?
Yeah. Well, previously it would be. It's if we're going back like Patient Zero, like Dawn of Civilization stuff. It was like Tuesdays were originally my day off, but then like YouTube, the apocalypse happened and Twitch was doing really good stuff. So I was like, let's start streaming on Tuesdays. I would do like story-based stuff, but now it's kind of become like. Right now, I'm just doubling up whatever I'm playing on Sunday so I can get through that stuff faster and try out more new ideas. Mm-hmm. Plus, everybody loves Dark Souls randomizer, so the more of that I make, the better it is for everybody. But I don't know. It depends. Like, there's some days where all I do is stream 3 hours, and by like 2.5 hours, I'm totally gassed and like I have no mental juice left to say anything funny or creative. And then, like, honestly, on last Tuesday's stream, even though we played 3 hours of Trivial Pursuit, I was like a high energy by the end of the show still. So I think to some extent it depends. I mean, I don't even know what factors it depends on. You know, how well did you eat that day? How much sleep did you get the night before? Like, did you have a stressful part of the stream where things went bad for a bit and then that sapped some energy or whatever? But
on Tuesdays, roughly, so with Team Unity, that's about 3 to 4 hours. What do you stream before that? Roughly how long?
Usually 3.5. So it still only ends up being like a 6.5 hour day.
Okay. 6.5 hours. 6.5 hours. And then, but you're good with that because it's not every day.
Yeah, I think so.
And then Sundays you do 3 hours?
Sundays I do 3, maybe 4 sometimes, but usually 3.
But for the most part, it's pretty regimented. And that's fair to say?
Yeah.
And then when you do that, like because I just feel like if someone that's never seen your show, if they're watching the NLSS, it's like 3 hours and you're like this the whole time. There is no like crash. There is no dip. You're like here the whole time. And I don't know. Was that always a like for, and this origin story is a whole nother story, but when you set up the show, do you remember why you didn't just hit record forehead and just do it?
I think like, so there was this is way back, but when I was starting to think about streaming, I think I'm very lucky that it was early before anything had kind of crystallized as like a model to do things. And also YouTube was like way on the up. Like I was growing at a pace that is like unheard of for at least me in 2020. So I was excited and I was like all about trying new things. So I was like, I want to stream, but I don't want to do like the thing that other streamers are doing where they just go live. I think there's an opportunity to create something a little bit more, you know, I kind of envisioned it originally as being inspired by like late night TV shows like Conan O'Brien and stuff like that. So there would be like, you know, we would play some games and have some fun. Maybe there would be like an interview with a developer or something like that. We would play some games with the hosts, like outside of video games, like trivia and stuff like that. And that would be like the variety that would keep people coming back. And then honestly, it just like that's organizing that stuff outside of the stream is too much work. So we stripped about 95% of that away. And now we play 3 games.
And then were the first couple episodes, did you try to do that of the NLSS?
To a greater extent, yeah. I mean, I think we've had developers on the NLSS, I think, and definitely in like 2013, 2014, there's a little bit more of like an open door sort of thing. It was like, hey, your game's coming out. Do you want to come on and, you know, talk about it for a bit? But it didn't last very long, to be honest.
Well, just because of the planning aspect of it?
Yeah, I mean, it's already like, I mean, you know, again, this is borders on complaining. You work with other streamers. They're hard to work with. Well, that's myself included.
Well, that's what, like for this one, for this first episode, I'm like, okay, no matter what, because we plan to do it at 3:00 Eastern or 12. I'm like, I'm gonna be on time no matter what, because I just think it sets. Like I try to be as professional as humanly possible, because I just try to respect each other's time as much as possible. But also, it's like it's a business. You know what I mean? Like if I'm here, if we're supposed to start at 3 and we start at 3:30, that's 30 minutes. You could have recorded something. You could have went live on Twitch. And I don't know. I just feel like, and I think, and I don't want to project anything, but I think that's what has had a huge hand in how successful you've been, and you know why I feel partly has been successful. We treat it like we're messing around, but it's organized business messing around. And I don't know, it sounds kind of weird to say that publicly, but there is like not a science, but a business behind what we do. And if you don't keep it on point, things go off the rails, like this podcast.
Yeah. I'm always surprised when people, like, I think it's hard to give tips on becoming a streamer, because I think anybody who denies that there's an element of luck and happenstance in growing is being willfully ignorant for whatever reason. But I'm always surprised when people are like, I don't have a schedule. I just tweet before I go live. And then I hope that people will show up. Even if you're only going to be live like twice a week, like if you've only got time for that, I'm like, you should let people know, like Saturday at noon and Sunday at noon. Those are when I go live, and only miss them if there's like, I mean, if you're ill, of course. If you're like, if there's a family emergency, a health emergency, you got to do what you got to do. And if you're feeling truly horrible mentally, of course, if you're going to put on like a terrible show. But I'm like, I do think people play a little fast and loose with their schedules a lot. And
Well,
it can only work to their detriment, I think.
well, that's what I was thinking. I think I was there when it happened. It was during one of your shows, and it might have been a Sunday show, and someone said, "Why are you laughing? This is your job." And and I kind of feel like that way when it comes to other things too, where it's like if you got a schedule and you miss it, okay, but I just don't think it's very, and I don't want to put a blanket statement out there. I just don't think it's very common that in our industry that people don't miss stuff. Like I think, like I see a lot of stuff like, oh, this happened and this happened. I'm like, cool, but those people that were expecting your show are now going to go somewhere else. And I don't know if it's hungry or just grateful or whatever, but I just take that very seriously. Where it's like if I say, hey, these are the days we're here, and I mean, I think people appreciate that, and it goes a long way.
But I wanted to actually pivot. I had it in my section of the Google sheet.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about time management, and I'm going to pump your tires a little bit first, because I think people don't realize that you have your own business. I don't know if it's your main gig or it's on the side. I guess
it's the main. Yeah.
Okay. And then on top of that, so lately you've been streaming 5 days a week on Twitch.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes in January there were even some weekend streams in there.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's like, I don't know, 4 hours on average, those streams, plus, Tutty on Tuesdays is like another 4 hours. You're putting out, like 1 to 2 or 3 YouTube videos a day. And then on top of that, you have like 2 young kids. So as somebody like on my end, I think I'm good with time management, but I also have probably like, I don't know, like a third as much going on in my life as you do. So I'm interested to hear what your strategy is for that.
So for me, it changes from time to time, but like this morning, for example, I completely pivoted my schedule because there's times when it's like, what I normally do is I get up, I work out, I'll come to the office. And either by that time, either my kids are sleeping or on one day I'll take them to school. But this morning, and I think this is a luxury, like I said, you know what? I want to be there when they wake up. So I was there and we wake up and I have to cut something out. So I cut working out. But for me, it's just, I think what allows me to do everything that I do, number one, as of a very, very supportive wife, she gets it. And then the other thing is that I'm okay, like my vision of success, like I'm okay knowing that during that week of Tarkov Prime drops, like I could have been live 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. But to me, that's not the end goal. Like I just want to be able to be happy, aka have the opportunity to create content and be able to do more and more of it. But in terms of how I manage things, if my kids are at school or sleeping, that's when I try to work. And then when I shut it down and just try to be as present as possible. But in terms of doing everything, like I still feel like that's my weakest area of production. I just feel like I waste a lot of time, and that's like, you and I will probably talk about this a lot over the next, however long we do the podcast. I just feel like that's the area where I can still squeeze out time. Like when I look at time that I waste, I just feel like it's when I waste time, I'm more critical of it now because that's time I could be at home.
That makes sense.
But I never look at it as like, I'm okay losing out on an opportunity to be with my family, because I don't look at it like that. I look at it as like, I'm grateful for the opportunity to have the flexibility to do that. But in terms of time management, the only thing that really is very disruptive, and we've talked about this, is Tuesday nights. Like it's extremely disruptive, and we've been doing it for 2 years and I still haven't figured it out. And I think that's one of the things you and I will probably talk a lot about. But for as much as like I like to think I have it figured out, I got a long way to go, because that is like, I'll have a great schedule. Like I'll go to bed early on Sunday, get up, work out at 6 a.m. Monday, and then work out 6 a.m. Tuesday morning, and then Wednesday it's a wash. And it's like getting to the point where it's like anything else, the cycle continues to happen unless something changed. So I don't know. I don't have an answer on the time management. I just try to, whatever feels right at the time. Like if I need to take a morning off, I do it. And when I say morning off, I'm still going live at 10 or whatever. But what's your take on it? Because what's your what's your day to day look like? You're like, all right, today was Thursday. What did you do today?
I think people who don't waste time think that they waste a lot of time. That's my broad take. Because like the way you're describing your days, and then like I was gonna say the same thing, is like I think I waste a lot of time. But realistically, I think I probably waste like less than an hour in an average day from like in a pure waste sense. Like and usually so it's like I'll wake up. Today's Thursday, so I don't work out on Thursdays.
When
so
do you
I
work out?
Like Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Yeah.
So on a Thursday, like I wake up, it's like, I mean, you're gonna hate me for saying this, but it's like 9 or 9:30.
Oh, no judgment, because I imagine you probably stay up later.
I mean, I stay up to like 12:30.
Yeah. Oh,
I get a good amount of sleep. I love it.
My big thing is no matter, and this was something that I think when I was in my mid 30s, it's been any judgment has been for the most part removed from me. If you want to get up at noon, get up. I think that's been a big. I mean, it's a whole different story. I'm gonna put it on the list for next time. But go ahead. Sorry. Not so you wake up at 9.
Yeah, like 9:30, and then I'll like I'll get a coffee and go to the bathroom, brush my teeth and shower and stuff like that. When I pop out, it's probably like 10:15. And then from that like point onwards, usually I'm like pretty on, to be honest. So like today at 10:15, like I looked up the Golden Goblet stuff for today, and I knocked out Golden Goblet like day 6.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a couple days ahead even. And then like I looked at the amount of time that we had left before the show, and I was like, it's probably not enough to record a video. So instead I moved like the half hour it might take to like set videos and make thumbnails and stuff like that. I moved that to like the pre-podcast period. Mm-hmm. Now I'm doing the podcast in like, if it finishes in 10 minutes, I'll record another video. If it finishes in 40 minutes, I'll just go right live. Then it'll be live right into Kate's stream will come on after that. So I'll be off at like 8. And then I'll probably take like 20 minutes to just relax, do some chores around the house, cook dinner. Usually I get like my own free time around like, I don't know, maybe like 10:30 at night. And I've been learning Korean, so I just usually just dive right into that. So.
I didn't know that. How are you self-teaching? Do you have like what is that called? Rosetta Stone, or what do you do?
So, I mean, it's very convenient because Kate is a native Korean speaker. Mm-hmm. So she bought me a textbook, and I've been working through the textbook and doing like a little Duolingo on the side, which is an app that is like a gamified language learning service. Mm-hmm. But usually I can, just be like, hey, Kate, does this sentence make sense? And she'll be like, oh, no, you have to, instead of like koyangi, it's koyangi ga because it ends in a vowel or whatever. So it's efficient because I can get my questions answered quickly.
What sparked you to pick that up?
Honestly, like every holiday season is like I'll go with Kate to her in-laws' place or to her parents' place, and I'm the only Caucasian person. I'm the only person that, well, I'm not the only person that speaks English, but I'm the only person that doesn't speak Korean. Mm-hmm. Kate's parents don't speak English particularly well, so usually all the conversations are happening in Korean, and I just sit there and like look at my phone. So
like look at your phone to translate, or you're like on your phone like scrolling through
Twitter or something, like, because like I don't know if you could even translate it with an app like fast enough to be able to participate. So I'm sure like anybody who's been in this situation has had this situation where you're sitting around the dinner table and like people say something and then everybody else laughs and you go like ha 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 ha, but I don't even know what it was. So yeah, I've just been starting to like learn the language a little bit. So even if I can't communicate that well, at least to get an idea of what they're talking about is good. And like secondarily, I don't know, I kind of like, especially as I've gotten older, I don't like to have hobbies that are just idle and like don't work towards something. Not because of the mindset that like if you're not working, you're not doing something, but more because like, I don't know. So usually now like I'll look back, if I play like an hour of Forza or something like that, I'll look back and be like, man, I really wish that instead of playing Forza, like it was fun, but I wish like I got further ahead in Korean, or I wish I did the dishes or something. I wish I took down the garbage so that I didn't have to take it down tomorrow. Like I would rather just do that stuff. I don't find it like less enjoyable. It's like the same amount of enjoyment, but also like it accomplishes something on the to-do list.
When did that change for you, or has that always been somewhere inside? Because you've programming,
yeah,
working out, now learning Korean. I'm sure there's other things I have no idea about, but I mean, we've known each other 7-ish years. Like those are 3 pretty big undertakings. And I would say you're probably a pretty proficient programmer, and you're very proficient at going from zero lifting to now.
Yeah.
But where does that
Honestly,
come from for you?
I think there was like a watershed moment for me. And I want to be clear right off the bat, because like I play video games for a living. I love video games, and like even when they suck, I have a great time playing them. Like I think it's a really like a huge privilege to be able to do it. But like back in 2014, Cade and I started playing Dota 2, and it's just like the game is designed to be as addictive as possible and as sticky as possible to get you to keep playing, in my opinion, at least. And like one day, you know, we'd been playing like 4 or 5 hours a day. I was just like, if I look back on it honestly, like what percentage of that was even fun? And it's like maybe 50% on a normal day, maybe like 10% on a good day. But it's just like I'm just doing it to do it, and because I've tricked myself into like thinking it's fun. So I stopped playing it cold turkey like on that night, and that opens up a lot of time. And I think it also gave me that philosophy moving forward where, you know, I think it's easy to caricaturize it as like being like a robot who only wants to be productive. But if I really like honestly look at time spent playing games, some of them, like I played like 100 hours of Slay the Spire off camera last year, and I loved it. I was engaged the whole time. But, you know, if I play like an hour of Halo Reach casually, I'm like, you know, there was probably only like maybe like 8 minutes of pure joy in that whole time. Like I would rather be doing something that is more efficient in terms of making me happy, and maybe also adds to my life in some way beyond that.
And I'm just like writing topics. I'm very surprised that you spent 100 hours in Slay the Spire, not recorded them. Like that's but that's something we're going to talk about in the next episode of the podcast. Ryan, closing thoughts. Is this what you thought it would be? Do you think it, for you internally, did this the check the wire, check the boxes for you?
Yeah, I think it. I think it went better than expected, to be honest. I was kind of, if I had a worry, and I'm not even sure that I did, but if I had one, it would be that we would, you know, like exhaust all topics of conversation immediately in the first week. And especially, I know you brought this up as well, that it would just become like a vent session of like, you know.
There's no way I'm letting that happen.
I appreciate that. But I was like, I know I don't have a high degree of propensity for it, but a tendency sometimes to get into that, where I would be like, other streamers do this and it's stupid, or like, you know, you get the idea. So I'm glad that didn't happen. And I think if anything, we've opened up more topics of conversation for the future.
100%. And you alleviated, and I didn't tell you my concern, but my concern was that, and it's okay, but I didn't want to commit to it, is that I spend a lot of my content, in particular, like either with you or the guys, I'm like on a questioning type role, because I know like that's super entertaining, but I wanted this to kind of be like a back and forth. And where it's like I could sit here and ask you a million questions, and I know it'd still be entertaining, but at the same time, like just as much as for you, like this is a chance to like kind of get stuff out and hash out ideas. Like I wanted that to be the side, and it checked the box too. So I
was trying to fight to get you to answer more as well. I was like, I don't want to be interviewed. I'm here to learn.
No, well that's it. And that's like, to me, that's not it's not native for me to not just pummel you with questions, because you're very good at explaining things. And I think I'm really, really good at interviewing people, much more better than, I think I'm better at interviewing people than I am answering questions. So I'm like, all right, let me just lower the energy and pummeling with questions and just let it run. So I think it was a good, fun podcast, man. I gotta tip the cap to you. I think it was a great idea. I'm really excited to do one next week, just to update people. Any closing thoughts before I give people the update?
I don't think so, honestly.
Okay. So just in terms of inside baseball or manifest checklist stuff, you're going to be able to catch the videos, the VODs, only on Ryan's channel at youtube.com/Northernlion. The audio feeds are going to be on Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and and what am I missing? iTunes. And you can get to that for now by going to Linktree dot whatever. It's linktr.ee/DanGheesling. We'll come up with a better, easier URL for you to get right to the feed. But essentially, the content, you can find the audio content on my podcast and the video content on Ryan's YouTube channel. Am I forgetting anything, Ryan?
No, it sounds beautiful to me.
Yep. Every Tuesday, the audio will be live at 6 a.m. Eastern in time for your commute to work or school or whatever. And then whenever Ryan wants to put it up on his channel.
Yeah, we can do it 6 a.m. Eastern.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you guys.
So if anything goes wrong, it's going to be there for a few hours. But
well, thank you guys so much for tuning in to the first episode. We're going to explain what Check the Wire is on episode 2 and then get into a lot more. But thank you guys so much. If you enjoyed this, please, for me, I don't know if Ryan wants this. I love when people say, hey, I like the show. Here's what I would like more of. Tweet me at DanGheesling if you have any suggestions, topics you want us to cover. I don't want to open up Ryan's Twitter.
No, yeah, loop me in. I would love to. I love good feedback.
And if you want to make it super easy, use the hashtag #CheckTheWire on Twitter. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening wherever you guys are. And we will see you guys next Tuesday. Have a great one.